says, led in 1948, the creation of that state, led to the expulsion of half of the native population of Palestine. Show me any other situation in history where the international community, under the slogan of peace, would come and say, in order to make this country a peaceful place, I have to kick out half of the people who live there. Only in Israel and Palestine we have this bizarre historical moment where the United Nations, embodying the international community's will, is telling the world that it allows Israel to kick out half of Palestine's population in the name of peace. And once you start like this, the history of Israel, it's very difficult to retract and to explain that actually you have to study history and go back to 1947 and 1948 and say that partition, or the idea of partition, is an immoral idea. It's not even a good realpolitik idea. But that, of course, you couldn't know in 1947. I can understand that in 1947-48, you would have said, let's see, if we divide the country into two, it may work. Who would have known? But 60 years later, can you argue that dividing this baby, if you want, is different from the Solomon tribe? It's not surprising. You all know about the Solomon tribe, right? You know about the baby and the two mothers, and that the real mother doesn't want the baby to be cut into two. We know who is the real mother in the case of Israel. We know who was willing all the time, supposedly, to petition it. So, I think that the whole idea of the ethnic cleansing is connected to the international support for it, not direct support for it. But the agreement and the consent of the United Nations, and later on the European community, and later on the United States, to say that this is the way peace can only be possible in Palestine. That the Israelis kicked out enough Palestinians and took over enough of Palestine to create the only democracy in the Middle East. They corrupted every commonsensical language that we had in the West in the late 1940s and the early 1950s with the Zionist project. That's how you create democracies? By kicking out the indigenous population so that you can have a Jewish majority? But that's what all young Israelis believe. They learn in the political science department that in order to build a democratic society where the majority can decide what to do, you are entitled first to define the majority, even by means of killing the other side, so that you will be sure what would be the result of the democratic elections. Israelis don't find it at all bizarre that if you create a democracy, you can also perpetrate ethnic cleansing and genocide, so that you get the right electorate for the future democracy. But a lot of people in the West will talk about Israel as a democratic state, because they would say the majority votes and decides what to do. The fact that the majority has to be kept all the time by ethnically cleansing people, by massacring them, by colonizing them, by putting them in great ghettos like in Gaza, is never discussed as part of the Israeli democracy. And I think we should bring that to the fore. The only way to keep Israel as a democratic state, according to the Zionist ideology, is to continue to be a criminal state. It is almost like allowing people in the worst kind of prison, the worst kind of criminals, to have a democratic system by the force of the gun, by the force of the brutality, by the force of their sheer power. Now, the third and last concept I would like to talk about is, which comes out of colonialism and ethnic cleansing, which are the main driving ideologies behind the Jewish state. Ethnic cleansing and colonialism are the reason that we have a Jewish state in Israel. This is not what we are told, of course, either as Israelis who were born there, and we are not told as people who support Israel around the world. We are told about two very different ideologies. We are told about the need to find the Jews a safe place, and we know it's not a very safe place for Jews. It's the only unsafe place for Jews is to be in Israel. It's the place where most of the Jews have been dying in great numbers since 1948, and that this is the place where Jews can recreate themselves as a national movement, where they can exercise the right for self-determination. But we know that Israel is not interested in the right of self-determination for the Jews. This is why it brings hundreds and thousands of non-Jews from all over the world